Hey guys, welcome back. Well, show season is over for us, so we're back working on the 27D, and we picked up some accessories. If you guys can see, picked up some accessories from Hans. Got some wheel extensions, so it's going to be a wide load in the back, but that's okay. We also made some plug wires, got those ran and routed. Some new plug wire holding blocks. I made those out of a piece of oak. I believe it's oak anyway. It's definitely not pine, it's a hardwood. Got the Magneto timed, and that's real simple. For these, it's basically a 50-50 shot you have to get it timed correctly. You hook up your wires however you want, but the important thing to remember with John Deere is you want to get your left-hand spark or left-hand impulse timing mark lined up with the timing mark on the side of the transmission case here. Once that's lined up, what I like to do is, this has got a manual trip mechanism, so I will engage the trip mechanism and then I'll loosen these two bolts, essentially the same as you would a distributor, and then I'll turn this by hand until, you know, that'll turn this alignment disc with the Magneto but not with the engine. I'll turn this by hand until I hear the Magneto trip. I'll hold it in place and then lock down my bolts. Then I'll test everything by turning the flywheel over, and if everything's set correctly, when this left-hand spark timing mark rotates past the timing mark on the side of the transmission case, the Magneto should impulse at that time. Now, all you need to do to make sure you got them wired correctly is check where you have spark coming out of, and when you have left-hand spark, you should have left-hand spark coming out of this wire. If that's not the case, you just flip these two wires and then you'll get left-hand spark. So that's where we're at with this one. We also have a temporary fuel tank in place. I've got that ran to the carburetor. Everything should be good there. I've got the transmission gasket set down with some high tack. I'm not going to put high tack on the top side because I want the cover to be able to be removed without destroying the gasket should we need to. So once this is all run in, we can put high tack on the gasket surface on the top side, but even still I'll probably leave it off. If we get a little bit of seepage, so what? So we're waiting on some cork material for the crankcase and transmission cover gasket. I'm hoping that'll be here today, but not exactly sure. So once that's done, we can belt it up. But right now we're going to top off the fluids. We're going to put fluid in the transmission housing, put engine oil in it, and then maybe run the hose over here and put some water in it just to see what we have, you know, as far as do we have any leaks. We'll let it set overnight and watch for any drips on the floor. So tomorrow, if all goes well, we should be belting this up and creating some oil pressure and possibly seeing if we can get it to run. So stay tuned. Let's get some oil in it. All right, here we go. We gotta dump in. Now, it calls for 5 inches of oil in the bottom. I'm just gonna let this drain out. But that translates, according to everything I've found, it translates to about 7 gallons. So we'll just let it drain and drain and drain.
Looks like rainbow. Dad.
What, Bubba?
Looks like rainbow. rainbow.
Looks like rainbows?
Yeah.
Can you see colors through it?
Yeah. It goes up and down. It goes up and down. It goes up and down. That's why. It goes up and down. Can I touch it or no?
No, don't touch it.
How about my gloves? Can I do it with my gloves?
Just hold on, okay? You can do it in just a second.
Wow, that's a lot.
It's a lot of oil, huh?
Yeah, it's kind of cool. I see it inside there. Now it's all done. We're not all done.
We're gonna let both of these drain, just like this.
Yeah.
If I can get them situated here.
Go wait for a minute.
There we go. Oop.
Go wait for a minute. It looks like gold, but it's rainbow.
Just like that. Okay, moving on to the engine oil. Okay, now the engine holds 13 quarts of engine oil. And I have 14 quarts. So there's 10 quarts. So now this, according to where I'm looking at the level here, you can see in the bottom, if I move the oil jug, actually I'll do it this way. You can see there's a level indicator here. This is your drain down to. So it's kind of a weird way to say it, but this here, if you were running kerosene or distillate on this tractor, I believe basically every day what you would do is you'd drain the oil down to this level to drain off any diluted, kerosene, whatever, and then you'd refill it to this level. So you'd crack the nut on this one, let it drain, and then you would tighten this, crack the nut on this one, and then refill it until it comes out this inspection petcock. So that's the purpose of these. Right now, I don't think you can see it way in the bottom, but near the end of my finger is the hole for that oil level indicator petcock. It's over that right now, but you have to keep in mind the oil pump isn't full, the rods and the crankshaft isn't full of oil, so that's going to draw some out. So we'll spin it over a few times by hand here to see, maybe we can even get some oil pressure out of it and see what the level drops to. But let's give it a shot. Okay, I've cranked it over a few times. I pulled the plugs out and opened the compression releases just to make things easier. I'm already out of breath, but check out what happens here. We have oil pressure. That's good. Perfect. Well, I guess the next step would be to belt it up. Oh, we got to put water in it. Don't forget about the water. Okay. Sorry, I'm kind of standing in the way of the camera here, aren't I? Okay, so we got oil pressure, we got oil in the rear end. Don't have to over tighten it. The cork is very, some might say fragile. It's prone to squeezing out, so just enough to snug everything down. Just like that. Okay, I'm just going to set the crankcase cover on for now because we're waiting on cork, but we're really close. Okay, well, we've got gear oil in it, we've got engine oil in it, we've turned it over to make sure we got oil pressure, which we do. I haven't put water in it yet. I will tomorrow. I got kind of sidetracked. I thought to myself, you haven't looked at the front end yet. So I did that, and well, much like everything else on this tractor, it's not the greatest, but I've got the front wheels off, the bearings out of the hubs. One of the wheels was missing the inner dust shield. I've got a new one of those, new old stock. Here's what I found. For starters, this spindle here, which is the spindle from the, let's see, it would be the flywheel side of the tractor. The spindle itself isn't in the greatest shape. This surface here is in pretty poor shape. I believe this is where the bearing rides, but this surface is not very great. And on top of that, if you can see, the holes here are all hogged out. That's where the steering sector gear bolts to, which isn't the end of the world, but those bolts aren't the greatest, or those bolt holes. The pivot pin looks good. There's not much play in that pivot pin, and the pin has a little bit of wear, but it's not bad. I've seen a lot worse, so we gotta clean these pins up yet. But this one is not too bad. Now, if we go over to this other one, this spindle, this portion looks great here. This doesn't look so good. There's a huge lip that's wore into this, which tells me one thing. This outer bearing has spun on the shaft. Possibly. Let's see, is it this one? Yeah, it's pretty loose on there. It's not great. But I think this is the one that came off of it. That's not terrible. So there's that. This wheel off of the, let's see, it would be the flywheel side, had a different bearing on the inside. The inner bearing is different than the outer bearing on these wheels, but this bearing, if you look at the width of this one and compare it to this one, that's a significant difference. So we're going to have to figure out which bearing is the correct bearing. I'm willing to bet it's this one, but that's something we're going to have to take care of. This pivot pin is pretty wore, so we may have to make a new one of those. And with the wear on the pivot pin, we have lots of wear wore into the spindle itself. So we're going to have to remedy that. So right now, I'm wondering if I should find a new flywheel side spindle and have this one machined and bushed, or should I just try to find 2 good spindles and 2 good pivot pins, and then probably have to do the bearings. This one isn't bad. This one is actually very nice. This one's a bit looser. But these two are different, and I'm willing to bet that this is the correct one. So if I can get some numbers off of here, and that one's completely half wore away, so I don't know how I'm going to get a number off that one. This one I can't find a number on. Must be wore away. How about this one? 2705 or 85? I think that's 2785. Tough to see. And this one, can't read. Oh, wait a minute. 342, but I'm pretty sure that's the wrong bearing anyhow. So we've got a lot of wear problems here. And then on top of that, the center hole in the axle beam needs to be bored out and bushed. And the yoke at the back is severely worn, and it's missing the bushing. So that needs to be bored out and bushed. And I don't think I can get a company to do it that will allow me to keep the radius rods in the axle. Maybe, but pulling those radius rods is a really really not fun task from what I've been told. So that's I was planning on waiting until spring to do this, but it's in here. I don't want to drive it and cause worse damage or break a hub on a wheel, so I'm just erring on the side of caution and just doing it now as far as looking at how bad the wear is on everything. So that's where we're at. But tomorrow, Rudy's going to come over. We're going to get the Farm All H out. Oh, sorry about that. We're going to get the Farm All H out, and we're going to belt it up to the D here, spin it over for a little while, run it, make sure it's not making any weird sounds or squeaks or knocks or rattles. And then if all goes well, we will see if we can add some fuel to it and make some noise. So we'll see what happens. That's going to do it for this video, though. I'm going to leave you guys on pins and needles for tomorrow. So stay tuned, guys. We'll see you in the next one. Hopefully we'll have a runner.